We have multiple bright regions on the sun this week, some of which are launching solar storms, and I've got some updates on both Comet Atlas and SWAN. Those stories and more in the news this week. This space weather forecast is sponsored in part by Millersville University. Come get certified in broadcast space weather. Visit millersville.edu/SWAN. Space weather this week gives us a lot of eye candy to look at. As we switch to our front side sun, you can see that bright region there. That is a new cycle bright region. Unfortunately, it never became a sunspot. However, we do have a lot of prominence activity because of that, and including a big filament that looks like it might let go. If it happens to launch, it'll be a nice solar storm that could even be Earth-directed, so we're paying very close attention to it. On top of that, we also have a mini little bright region in the south, and it's been firing off a couple little tiny flares, not enough to give us a big solar storm or anything like that, but it also is another fun thing to watch and brings us some much needed activity we haven't seen in quite some time. We also have a small coronal hole that's rotating into the Earth strike zone, which could bump us up to unsettled conditions, which we've kind of been sitting at anyway, but don't expect a lot from it. And then after about a week, we have yet another finger-like coronal hole, and that could give us a slightly larger burst of fast wind in about a week. Now, as we switch to our far side sun, this is stereo A, and it's looking at the sun pretty much from the side. You can see that bright region in the northern hemisphere that's leaving the west limb in stereo's view. But now look at this on the east limb of stereo's view in the south. Look at this bright region. And as it begins to rotate into view, wait for it, bam! Did you see that? That is a solar storm launch. That's a gorgeous thing to see. And on top of that, we also have, just following it, in the northern hemisphere, yet another new cycle bright region. So it looks like this new solar cycle is finally beginning to take hold. Don't know when we're going to be calling it the official start of the new cycle, but man, this activity is making it feel like it's our old-time sun again. Last month, Comet Atlas dashed our hopes of a brilliant display when it began to disintegrate right before our eyes. But by chance, scientists now have an opportunity to study its disintegration in progress. Believe it or not, the trajectory of the Solar Orbiter, the second mission launched over the past 18 months to study the sun, is about to pass right through the dust and plasma tails of the comet. Back at the end of April, Comet Atlas had already fractured into more than half a dozen pieces, as shown in amazing photos by the Hubble Space Telescope. So when scientists compared the trajectories of Solar Orbiter and the comet, they found an unexpected coincidence. Solar Orbiter might pass through the tail of Comet Atlas here over the next 2 weeks. Starting on May 31st or June 1st, Solar Orbiter could cross the outer ion tail of Comet Atlas and sample the cometary gas getting ionized by the sun's radiation and blown in the solar wind. If the comet is losing enough material at that time that Solar Orbiter makes its crossing, both the magnetometer and particle instrument could detect the ion tail directly. And then later, on June 6th, Solar Orbiter should then pass through the neutral dust field left by the disintegration of Atlas. Depending upon how much dust the comet has lost, the orbiter may be able to observe the dust slamming into the spacecraft directly or identify its presence through interplanetary field enhancements. In a new article published in the Journal of Research Notes of the AAS, the authors Jones, Afghan, and Price said if, quote, the Solar Orbiter instruments detect material from Comet Atlas, it will be the first predicted serendipitous comet tail crossing by an active spacecraft carrying appropriate instrumentation for the detection of cometary material. Hey, perhaps the disintegration of Atlas won't be such a letdown after all. Incidentally, Comet Swan also continues to brighten the night skies, although not as spectacularly as once thought. Early forecasts of its closest approach to our star had the comet reaching a peak brightness around magnitude 3.5, easily seen by the naked eye. But from its trajectory, we have recently learned that Swan might actually be a new or virgin comet out of the Oort cloud. Now, this is a shell of icy bodies at the outer edge of our solar system and considered a breeding ground for comets. Such virgin comets have never interacted with the sun before and thus are covered with very volatile materials like frozen nitrogen, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide. But as these ices vaporize, they give a distinct comet surge in brightness that fades quickly as these ices burn off. And this may be why Swan is no longer brightening so rapidly. By April 30th, the comet's brightness had only gone up to about a 5.2, and it was faintly visible by the naked eye. But since then, the brightening has stalled, hovering around a magnitude of 5.6, which still makes it worth a look. So starting on the 25th of May, Best chance of seeing the comet is in the early evening sky about an hour after sunset. It will be about 10 degrees above the north-northwest horizon with its tail pointing upward and to the left. Maybe the best chance will be on the evening of June 2nd because it will be just at the lower left of the star Capella. Happy hunting. Switching to our moon, we are now coming out of a new moon on our way to a first quarter, and by the 30th, the moon will be about 50% illuminated. So you night sky watchers, if you want to catch some dim objects in the sky, like, I don't know, maybe Comet Swan, you're going to have to check your local rise and set times. Switching to our solar storm conditions and aurora possibilities over the coming week, we aren't really anticipating all that much this week. We've had a small active region that's been firing some small little solar flares along with some mini solar storms, but that's kind of died down. So we're not really getting all that much other than slightly unsettled conditions. We do have a coronal hole that's going to be rotating into the Earth strike zone here over the next couple days, but once again, it's also pretty small. So at high latitudes, NOAA is expecting unsettled conditions with up to about a 15% chance of a minor storm, but that'll probably intensify about midweek. But at mid-latitudes, we're really not expecting much. Things should be pretty quiet. We're expecting normal to unsettled conditions with only about a 5 to 10% chance of active conditions. So aurora photographers, well, this week may be a week that you can just sit back and relax. Switching to your solar flare and particle radiation storm outlook over the coming week, everything is still in the green when it comes to big solar flares. Even though we do have a couple bright regions on the Earth-facing disk, they are not strong enough to be sunspots, and even though we're getting a few little mini flares here and there, it's not enough to cause radio blackouts. So you GPS users, you should have excellent reception on Earth's dayside. However, these regions are boosting the solar flux. We are maintaining the marginal range for radio propagation. As you can see, we're in the low 70s, and as the new bright regions from the sun's far side rotate into view, we might boost that solar flux even more, which is good news for you amateur radio operators and emergency responders. I know you guys are looking for a boost in propagation, and pretty soon you'll get it. So the space weather this week is reminding us what an active sun actually looks like. When was the last time we had multiple active regions from the new cycle firing solar flares and solar storms on the front side and the far side of the sun at the same time? Now, aurora photographers, I know you're itching for a solar storm to hit Earth, but we don't have any that are Earth-directed this week. The nice thing is that it looks like the possibility of that is boosting with each day. So just keep your eyes on the sun and maybe take some time to take a look at Comet Swan while you have the chance. Now, amateur radio operators and emergency responders, well, we're sitting in the low 70s for solar flux, which means we're sitting at marginal radio propagation on Earth's dayside, and that might actually boost a little bit higher into the maybe low to mid 70s when these new active regions rotate into view. So enjoy that. And as far as you GPS users are concerned, well, you know, we've gotten a few little mini solar flares, but we don't have any big disruptions on Earth's dayside. So your GPS reception pretty much all over the globe should be top notch. I'm Tamitha Scove. Thank you for watching.